Hi, my name is Amelia and I'm an art teacher with Artists for Kids in the North Vancouver School District. Welcome to the Gordon Smith Gallery. This year we are bringing you the AFK ArtReach video series, and in this series we share with you artworks and art activities mostly inspired by the theme of play and by the artwork that you see in the gallery around me. And the art activities that we share can be carried out at school, at home, and often outdoors. And we share these videos every other week on the AFK website. This week I will share with you the artwork of the Canadian artist Gordon Smith. And inspired by some of his art, we will create our own drawings that represent made-up machines. So we'll consider the following question. How can we combine drawings of shapes, lines, and objects to design our own made-up machine? Gordon Smith was a Canadian artist who lived for many years in West Vancouver, and he was well known for his paintings. He also created sculptures and prints, and he had a very distinctive painting style, and he often took his inspiration from the natural environment. And Gordon Smith was very committed to art education, and he was a well-loved teacher to many artists and to educators. And he helped to establish Artists for Kids here on the North Shore. And this gallery that I'm in right now is named after him. Take a look at this print by Gordon Smith. What stands out to you? What shapes and objects do you see? What colors has Gordon Smith used? How would you describe the lines that Gordon Smith has included in his image? And what do these shapes, objects, and lines remind you of? If this was a machine, what do you think this machine would do? Now take a look at this sculpture by Gordon Smith. What objects do you think he's used to make it? And what colors has he used? And what does this combination of objects remind you of? And again, if this was a machine, what do you think this machine would do? And do you see any similarities to the print that we just looked at? This sculpture has a funny backstory. Gordon Smith was actually given a cake, and instead of eating it, he used it to make this sculpture. And the cake is covered in a thick layer of white paint and is therefore preserved. The art activity that I will show you today is inspired by the print and sculpture that we just looked at. And both of these artworks remind me in some ways of machines. And both of these artworks are made up of collaged shapes and lines and objects. So inspired by these two artworks, we are going to explore today some ways that we can draw different lines, shapes, and objects, and then combine these drawings into a bigger drawing that represents a made-up machine. You'll need some simple materials to complete our art activity today. Firstly, you'll need an 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of white paper. You will also need an 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of black paper. This could be construction paper. You'll need a pencil, an eraser, a white, red, and yellow pencil crayon, and you'll need a white oil pastel, and you could optionally use some tape. Now, before creating your machine drawings today, I would highly recommend that you pause for a moment and look up the cartoons of the American cartoonist Rube Goldberg. He was a cartoonist. He was also a sculptor, an author, an engineer, and an inventor. And he lived in New York City, and he lived through World War II. And he was best known for his popular cartoons showing chain reaction type machines or contraptions that are designed to perform a simple task, but in an indirect or overly complicated way. And these machines that he drew in his cartoons often could be presented on paper, but would be almost impossible to create in real life. However, you can find many videos on YouTube of what is called Rube Goldberg machines, where people have created these types of very complicated machines in real life. And you can see some videos of them online. Now, to begin our drawing today, the first thing that you can do is take your 8.5 by 11 sheet of white paper, your pencil, and your eraser, and you can look around your classroom. You could also maybe walk around inside your school or even head outside and look for some elements that you could draw that could be used in your machine drawing later on. So I would recommend looking for things like pipes and wires, maybe light switches or tubing, other parts of kind of machines that are in your school environment, or even very simple machines like a paper towel dispenser. And you can then spend some time drawing about 6 to 8 of these objects from your environment on your white sheet of paper. And you could spend some time drawing these in a more realistic way, showing them as 3D objects, or you could choose to simplify these drawings and make them look flatter. It is up to you. And here you can see some of the objects that I chose to draw from my environment. And I was careful to include some interesting details like buttons, circles, dots, lines, and little chords, because this will help me to create my bigger machine drawing later on and will give me some interesting lines and details that I can include in that drawing. Here you can see I have taken some time to draw about 8 different objects that I observed in the art studio. And you can see my drawing is a bit messy. I erased some drawings that I didn't like, and some of these objects I'm more happy with than others. And it's okay if this first drawing is kind of messy, because this is just going to be our first step in our machine drawing, and we'll be taking the parts that we like the best and repeating them and transferring them onto our next drawing. For the next step in our project, you will take your drawing and you'll get a white oil pastel, and you're going to flip your drawing over and color on the back of your piece of paper with your oil pastel. And you want to make sure that you are coloring over any section of the paper where you have drawn on the other side. And I'm pressing pretty hard with the oil pastel, and I can maybe hold my paper up to the light if I need to see where those drawings are on the other side, to make sure that I cover all sections on the back where I have drawn. Now you will take your black piece of paper and a pencil, and now we're going to combine these different objects together to make one big machine. So think about how you want to connect them together. I think I'm going to start with my faucet that I drew, placing it near the top of my piece of paper. So I'm going to put it down on top of my black piece of paper, where in the area of the black paper where I want that drawing to appear. So the side that I have scribbled with the pastel is touching the black paper. And I could take a little piece of tape if I want to hold my paper in place. I'll just sort of lightly press it there. And now I'm going to draw over the lines that I drew on this piece of paper. And as I do this, they are transferring onto my black piece of paper. So you can hold your paper down with one hand and then gently peel back the paper to check if it is transferring where you would like it to. And again, this tape is holding it in place so it won't shift around as I copy an object. So this is the fun part, where I get to imagine this made-up machine that I am designing and combine together parts of these drawings that I made to create my machine. Now I'll lift up my paper and think about what I would like to connect on to that first drawing that I transferred. So here you can see that I have combined together my pencil drawings to make this machine, and I've used almost every single one of my drawings, or at least some part of them, and many of them I repeated. And I could keep going and make this machine even more complicated, but I think I'm going to stop here. And so for my next step, I will need my white pencil crayon, my yellow pencil crayon, and my red pencil crayon. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my white pencil crayon to darken some of my lines. And I noticed that a few parts of my drawing, like this part of my tap, didn't transfer as well as I would have liked. And so I can look back at my original drawing and fill in the parts that are missing on my black paper. Once you've gone over your lines with your white pencil crayon and filled in any sections that you didn't transfer well enough, then take your yellow and red pencil crayons and start to fill in little details in your drawing. And so we're taking inspiration from Gordon Smith's print that we looked at earlier, in which he used just black, yellow, red, and white. Now I have filled in different sections of my drawing with the red and yellow and bits of white. I haven't filled in everything, but I've added in some punches of color. And one thing you can do to clean up your drawing once you've got to this point is take a white vinyl eraser, and you can actually erase some of these smudged bits of white that are in between your drawings. So you can do this just to sort of clean the drawing up a little bit. When you've finished your drawing of your made-up machine, you could think about, what does this machine do? And you could give your machine a title that maybe hints at its function. You could then share your drawing with a partner, and perhaps they could guess what your machine does. And you could also share with your partner the different features and components that you included in your drawing. You could also hang up your entire class's drawings and look at them all together and discuss what are some of the similarities and differences between the drawings that you created. We would absolutely love to see the machines that you drew, and you could share images with us here at AFK by posting images on Instagram using the hashtag AFK ArtReach, or you could email pictures to us. I hope you enjoyed drawing made-up machines today, and thank you for joining me. Please do check back in the coming weeks for more AFK ArtReach videos.